a good start.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Here, see how this goes. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Pascal Wilkins with the DEC, based out of the Lake Erie Fisheries Unit, and today I'm going to be talking about Lake Erie lake trout with a main focus on the last 10 years. I have to give a quick shout out to Jim Markham and Jason Robinson, as they're the ones that really spearheaded a lot of this work. I'm just the lucky one that gets to give the talk. So first off, these are both Lake Erie lake trout. Lake Erie does have the state record lake trout for New York State. You can tell they're stocked fish, however, with a clipped adpo fin. That's going to come in a little bit later on, just something to touch on. Lake Erie is the 4th largest of the 5 Great Lakes and the 12th largest lake in the world. It's bordered by 4 states and 1 province, and it's broken down into 3 basins. The western basin is the shallowest and the warmest, and the eastern basin is the coldest and the deepest. We're going to be focusing, or I'm going to be focusing the remainder of this presentation on the eastern basin, as that's where we have the cold water habitat. It's where lake trout are for the majority of the year. I'm going to provide a brief overview on the history of lake trout in Lake Erie. They were extirpated in the 1960s due to overharvesting from commercial fishing, eutrophication, habitat degradation, invasive species, sea lamprey, something that isn't uncommon to the Great Lakes lake trout history. Stocking began in the 1970s, but it wasn't until 1986, when sea lamprey treatment began, that we finally saw adult stocked lake trout getting into the lake system. So from that point on, 4 decades have gone by, and we're built this adult population that I would consider pretty healthy. This is our cold water gill net catches for adult lake trout, and we're going to focus here on the last 10 years where we have this pretty good adult population. One way to look at this again is age distribution. 1985, the year before sea lamprey treatment began, we did not have any lake trout getting past age 4. Sea lamprey were having that much of an impact. But when you fast forward to 2023, we have this really healthy age structure. If you look at the age 20 plus group, we have fish up to age 35. We haven't seen any pre-sea lamprey treatment stocked lake trout in several decades, but we're at a point right now where we're very healthy age population, age structure. Another way to look at this is strain contribution. We have 5 strains that have been stocked over the last 20 years, shown here on the right-hand side. And the 2 I'm going to point out are the Lake Champlain and the Finger Lake strains. Those are the strains that we found to have the best success of getting to adulthood, or the best chances to get there in the current Lake Erie system with the current sea lamprey situation. So as a quick review, we didn't have adult lake trout until sea lamprey control. We had to start stocking the proper strains to have the best chances to get to adulthood, and now we're at this point where we have a very healthy adult population in the lake, and yet we have yet to see any confirmed wild lake trout in Lake Erie. Now, why is that? The first thing that we have pointed to is spawning habitat. These are 2 pictures of Brockton Shoal. That was what was historically thought of as the spawning habitat in Lake Erie. It's in New York. It's this large reef complex in 50 to 60 feet of water. And on the left-hand side, you see really nice looking rock and good habitat. This was just after sea lamprey treatment began, was when that picture was taken, but it was before we had a adult lake trout population built up in the lake. We had dry-seeded mussel invasion in the early 1990s, and that area became fully impacted. The right-hand picture here is from last year when we had a team diving at Brockton Shoal. There are no lake trout congregating on this area right now. It is filled in with sediment and sand, silt, and dry-seeded mussels. It's not a good spawning habitat right now. So where are these adult fish trying to go at this point? If they're not going here, where is their viable spawning habitat? And we didn't have a good answer for that. That's where acoustic telemetry really became a powerful tool for us, and the GLaDOS network. From 2015 to 2019, we stocked 285 we tagged 285 lake trout in the Eastern Basin. This was done by Pennsylvania, New York, Ontario, with the help of USGS and GLaDOS. It was done during a time of year where we had a mixed fishery, so then we could just let the fish disperse and figure out where they're going to go. The tags had a 4+ year battery lifespan, so we had an extended period of time to see where the fish are going to be traveling to. So this is the receiver array out in the eastern basin of Lake Erie. The white bubbles here are the standard grid array for GLaDOS. This covers the entire Lake Erie, whereas the yellow bubbles are the perimeter array. This was set up just for this study. So then we could watch and see where these lake trout are going to go in the fall. And what we found was almost all of those tagged lake trout came and funneled in to this white rectangle here on the PA-New York border. From that point on, we set up 3 very tight perimeter array clusters, and the first one was Pennsylvania in 2018, Shorehaven Reef in New York in 2019, and then Van Buren Reef in New York in 2020. I'm going to focus on Shorehaven Reef here, as that's where we had the most individual detections and the best congregations of fish. The red dots here are all individual pings, so we have several tight clusters here that I'm going to be touching on in subsequent slides. The black circles are the individual receivers, so they were clustered close enough together we could have sub-meter accuracy. We could get pinpoint location data on where these fish are at any individual detection. This was a 4-mile wide array, so we're covering quite a bit of area on this nearshore habitat. This is another way to look at those congregation clusters. This is a hotspot heat map. I'm going to point out the 2 most distinct congregations of fish. Those 2 red arrows are shown here again with the bathymetry, the LiDAR layer that we had set up to look at the reefs. Those 2 congregations were right over 2 points at 2 reefs in an area that is very dynamic. It's the harshest, most volatile section of Lake Erie. Not a spot we would have expected lake trout to try and congregate to actually have successful reproduction, but that's where they ended up. That was in 2019. In November 2019 was when we had that array set up. We got the data back in November 2020. We were out there the very next day with a drop-down camera, and this is what we saw. Lovely green Lake Erie water and a congregation of lake trout. At both of those tight reefs, we had lake trout stacked 7 to 8 fish high. We had a fish with an adipose fin present. As I said, all stocked fish have a coated wire tag and an adipose fin clip. Not saying that's a wild fish. There can be fin clipping rates, but still very exciting to see. And we also saw this clean, broken cobble. Something that, it being a super dynamic, volatile area, we had some stretches where there's no sand, there's no dryseniid mussels. It's too rough for that dryseniid mussels to stay there. It's also not a great thing for eggs. You know, when you have 20-foot waves, these reefs are at 15 to 17 feet of water, dropping down to 23 to 25 feet. Again, not a spot that we had previously thought lake trout would be congregating at and trying to spawn. So this is November 2020. We're very excited with how all this has worked out. The next year we go out and set